Hello, welcome to another episode of Varsity360. I'm Columbian sports editor Micah and guess who's back? Meg Wochnick is back on Varsity360 for the first time in months. You're back from what I understand was a really exciting adventure in Honduras, teaching down there. We don't have to spend long on it, but how was that experience?
It was absolutely amazing. You're right. Spending almost 10 weeks teaching not only students but also teenagers and adults. And pretty much a rural pueblo down in Honduras, and it was an absolutely fantastic experience. Something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and finally was able to do it and just get away from Vancouver. I missed it, but it's great to be back, and it's been a while. So it's, believe it or not, we're going to talk some football in February.
Yes, it is the middle of February. We're here to talk football because there's been some major developments in the coaching scene here. But before we get to that, let's thank our wonderful partner in this episode, First Pacific Financial. As you can see, we're coming to you from the First Pacific Financial studio. Thanks to them for supporting the show, for supporting high school athletics, and by extension, supporting the community at large. But big news broke last week when it was announced that Union High School has hired Steve Pyne as their head football coach. For those of you who follow high school football in the area, this man his name is familiar. Obviously, he has a track record basically unmatched by anyone else at Central Catholic. But Meg, why don't you tell us, who is Steve Pyne?
Yeah, you mentioned it. If you follow high school football in the Northwest, this name is a familiar one. 21 seasons at Central Catholic in Southeast Portland, 195 victories in 21 seasons, but it's his 5 state championships that set him apart. All those 5 state titles coming in the last 10 seasons. In fact, no coach in Oregon State football history at the large classification level has won more state championships than Steve Pyne. So this is a big hire. In fact, talking with a number of folks around here, not only locally, but just around the state. And I can't think of a bigger name when you look at his track record who's ever come to Clark County. This might be the biggest hire to ever come to this area that we can think of. So this is just a big name, a big hire to come to Union.
Tell me about the juggernaut that he helped build at Central Catholic. When you think of Central Catholic, you think of, a great football history going all the way back to Joey Harrington even, and some of the athletes that they've had there. But what made his program there at Central Catholic so special?
Yeah, you mentioned Joey Harrington, and there were just a number of individual guys that are just recognizable. But just when you talk about the team success and the program success, Steve Pyne really built this program into the Oregon State power that it is. He came in 2003. The previous 6 or 8 years, Central Catholic made runs. I think 2 in the previous 4 times had made the state quarterfinals. But really, this is a program that really kind of became on the map when you're talking about Oregon 6A football. And so this is something that is just really kind of unprecedented when you're talking about the level of state championships. Again, 5 in the last 10 years. And talking with him when the news came out Thursday afternoon, it's like, well, what would pull Steve away from this dynasty at Central Catholic to come back over the Columbia River to Vancouver? And first off, he lives in Vancouver. He lives in East Vancouver with his wife, Erica, and they've lived in Vancouver since 2018. So that's the first factor. And the second factor is this is the first time in his 25 years as a head coach, this fall will be year 26, that he has lived in the community where he's coached. So essentially, he's been a commuter coach in his previous 25 years as a head coach. And this is really the first time in his coaching career, now that he's at age 55, where that was really appealing to him when coming over to Union. And again, kind of pulling away from Central Catholic, there was never kind of that list of schools that, well, here's the 5 lists of schools that I would leave Central Catholic for. That was never really kind of a laundry list of schools. It really had to be kind of a number of things on his wish list, so to speak, that he would even consider leaving Central Catholic for. And those were some of the things that kind of really was appealing for him. Living in the community where he worked was really appealing for him. Again, Union is basically a stone's throw away for him, and really he's never experienced that before. And he mentioned a couple of other things, most notably, again, Union, much like some of the other schools in the Evergreen Public School District, multiple turf fields. Again, that is something that is very unique and special to Union and the other 4 schools in the district, something that Central Catholic doesn't have. And you got to remember, they play their home games at Hillsborough Stadium. That's also home to Portland State University. While it's a great facility, on a Friday night, that's a 40 to 45-minute commute. That can be a haul. And again, McKenzie Stadium, that's a quick 8 to 10-minute drive. That's a big difference. So again, those are just some of the couple of things that he addressed on why Union is again kind of the right place for him at this stage in his career.
Well, let's delve a little bit more into that. Union, obviously, you don't have to go back that far to the Rory Rosenbach days when they are a state championship caliber program. Mm-hmm. They've obviously been there recently. They've had amazing athletes come through like Tobias Merriweather recently, but there were some connections within the administration and the athletic department at Union High School, weren't there, that made this an even easier move for Steve Pyne to consider?
Yeah, absolutely. So believe it or not, A.D. Lamont Woods and Steve Pyne go back decades. So back in 1990, when Lamont was a standout running back at Corvallis High School in Oregon, that's when Steve Pyne got his start in high school football coaching. He was just a young pup straight out of college as the offensive line coach at Corvallis High School. He was just 21, 22 years old at the time when Lamont was a senior at Corvallis High School before he went on to star at the University of Oregon. So that's when the connection actually started. Now, no one assumed that full circle would come all these years later in 2024, obviously coming to full circle last week when this hire was made. But that's kind of when the connection started with these two men all these years. So it's kind of funny kind of looking back at when this connection really started with these two guys back in 1990. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with Union also, they're a program, like I mentioned before, you don't have to look back far to winning state titles, being considered among the top teams in the state. They had a little bit of a downswing, maybe as, the last few years of Rory Rosenbach's tenure there. And then last year it was, kind of an unlucky season with first-year coach Kevin Code, where they had to deal with a lot of injuries and whatnot. But I get the sense that the foundation and the bones of this program, everything from the booster club to, it's a place, if you're someone like Steve Pyne, you don't have any reservations about going.
No question. And that was something that Steve also addressed when we chatted for about 15, 20 minutes last week. And he's watched this program really from afar. Again, being in the community, even though he's a coach from an opposing school, he's watched this community and this football program from afar. And he understands that this is a community who wants this football program to be relevant again, right? The last 2 years, yes, Union has gone 5-13, but like you said, the bones of the structure are there. And this is a program that you got to remember right from the start. Union has been relevant on the state stage. Under Cale Pyland, by year 2, Union was playing for a 3A state championship. By year 3, they were right there back in the state semifinals. So basically, since Union opened in 2007, they have been a relevant program on a state level. And Steve addressed that. And so he said, kind of first order of business this week. In fact, he's going to come in. He's going to have a player meeting and have those introductions. He's going to have a coaches meeting, have those introductions, and a parent meeting, have those introductions. And you know what? He's going to come in and have those 5 rings on his hand and have those state championships. And so he's going to have kind of that coming in, and the community wants to have that state championship mentality coming in. And you know what? They have the right coach coming in to do that.
I imagine he's going to bring some of his coaching staff as well.
He is, and I asked that. And right now, I believe there's between 5 and 6 that are committed right now to coming. And he said possibly there's more. And he did say that he's going to be interviewing a number of the union assistants who are on the last year staff. And possibly he might be hiring a number of those union assistants.
Well, one of the hottest rivalries, and this is going to only make it hotter, one of the hottest rivalries in Southwest Washington football, if not the whole state over the years, has been Union and Camas. Union obviously has a lot of buzz around it with Steve Pyne coming, but Camas also has a new coach. That's a development that happened during this offseason with Adam Mathieson taking over the reins of the Papermakers. So you have two of the preeminent programs in Southwest Washington with new coaching staffs, but these aren't rookies that have anything to prove. These are A-list coaching hires. Why does Adam Mathieson at Camas make so much sense?
This was news I actually didn't learn about actually for a good week. Again, being in Honduras, I wasn't completely under a rock by any means, but this was news I didn't find out about immediately. But my first reaction was that's no surprise by any means. It's basically going to be the same coaching staff that has been there even when John Eagle was head coach. So it makes perfect sense because Adam Mathieson is basically a CEO, kind of a head coach. He is a born leader of a program, a born head coach. And basically talking to him this offseason when he was basically the right-hand man to Jack Hathaway, I knew it was going to be basically a one and done. This guy wasn't going to be an assistant for more than just this one season in 2023. It was only going to be a matter of time before he was going to be a head coach, whether it was going to be in Clark County or whether it was going to be somewhere else in Washington. With someone like Adam Mathieson with the resume that he has built over the years, programs come after him. And there was a number of inquiries, not only in Clark County, but from the statewide level that were kind of gauging his interest. And so it was only going to be a matter of time before some program was going to scoop him up. And it just happened to be the program where he was on staff in 2023. So it made sense for him to jump on board when Jack Hathaway stepped down. It's great to see Jack still stay on board as an assistant. That also makes sense. And so again, it's going to be basically the same coaching staff intact, but it's just going to be a different head coach.
Well, we learned kind of through the rumor mill that there were, before the Steve Pyne hire at Union got any momentum, that Union, they'd be, obviously, if you have a coach like Adam Mathieson in the area, you would want to make at least a feeler out there. That so even, but to me, even though that never got any momentum or anything like that, having those two programs with that caliber of coaching is that's gonna be some great football for a long time.
It's just gonna make the rivalry even more spicier than it already is.
Yeah.
You got great programs, quality coaches. It's gonna make the rivalry even better.
What do you think that much is gonna change at Camas now that Adam is gonna is taking over there, or is it just more or less refining the structure and the philosophies that they already have in place?
Yeah. Everything has been in place. Not much has changed even when Jack Hathaway was in place for the past 3 years. If it's not broken, don't fix it, right? That's the saying. And not much changed even when Jack was in place, and I don't anticipate much changing with Adam in place.
Yeah. What do you think that's going to be like when those two teams take the sideline? I know we're talking months down the road, but what do you think that's going to be like for your average high school football fan to look on one sideline and see Steve Pyne, look on the other side and see Adam Mathieson and the resumes that they bring? What do you think that is going to do to making that must-see football?
Well, selfishly, I hope it's a Week 9 league championship game on the line. That's I think, what we all want to see. That's just great football, league championship on the line. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Another development that kind of came out. I don't know if I would say it's no surprise, but it definitely got on our radar when, over the last few weeks, some programs have been announcing their fall high school football schedules. And when River posted its schedule, one thing that jumped right out was they are not playing the annual rivalry game against Skyview. Now, we had talked about this a lot in the lead up to that game last year, how we believe that this rivalry had kind of run its course and no longer made sense. Over the last decade, Skyview has continued to grow not only in size but in power to become one of the preeminent 4A programs in the state. Columbia River is a 2A school, gone through a couple of coaching changes. They're trying to find their way as a program. So last year, it just wasn't really even a fair contest. Skyview winning that game 49-0, outgaining the Rapids 416-33 for their 9th straight win. So it makes sense, I believe, to say that that game no longer serves its purpose. Why do you think they decide to, not play it this year?
Well, in some ways, I want to say it was because of our podcast, right? I don't think so. No, I don't think so. You know, it was interesting. I mean, we can sit here and debate that. We kind of laid out the pros and cons on why we think it was the right decision. But ultimately, it is the right decision, right? Number one, it's not a fair fight for either school, right? I mean, it's a 4A versus a 2A matchup. It's for Skyview, you can go out and find a better quality opponent. There were two things that came to mind when I saw this. Number one, I thought they actually pulled the trigger and did it, right? It's easy to come out and say it's an in-district rivalry. It's great for the pocketbooks. It brings in the crowd. It brings in the money. It's easy to just do it. But it's another thing to actually just pull the trigger and take it off the schedule. And I didn't actually think it would happen. This is actually the perfect time to do it because you have the restart of a new home and home series schedule. This is the kind of the flip of the calendar when you start doing your next two series of a home and home. So this would be the perfect time to do it. I just didn't think it was going to happen. So my next immediate thought when I thought of it is, gosh, this is just another non-league schedule, a non-league game that Skyview has to fill on its schedule. Again, because they play in a very small 4A league, they've got 6 non-league games to find. It's just one more non-league game that they have to fill on its schedule. For years, it's been that lock of the week 2 game with Columbia River on its schedule. Now it's no longer there. So those were kind of the first two things that came to my mind when I saw the graphic come out by Columbia River Football of its schedule.
Well, and someone associated with the Skyview football program reached out to me in a DM. I had put on social media when I noticed that the game wasn't happening that, looks like no Skyview Columbia River. It makes sense to me. And this person wasn't happy with that take because he's like, there's something else you need to consider. This means one less game for our JV and our freshman team because evidently if you're scheduling another 4A program out of the area, there's can be transportation issues and sometimes the whole program doesn't go. And so is that a valid concern and how, what possible ways could Skyview possibly address that?
That was something that I heard back in the fall. There were a number of coaches who, yes, that is a valid concern. I don't know if that's strictly a VPS issue. I don't know if that's an issue that some of the other teams in the 4A GSHL also have to address at all. But if that is a concern, a Skyview only concern, then yeah, that is something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and I'm not speaking from a point of expertise. I don't make the schedules. I don't do any of that, or know really all the bones or the behind the scenes stuff that goes into that. But maybe they get creative and start scheduling multiple games against freshmen and JV programs from the area. But I at least wanted to address, at least put that out there, that's one point of concern from the Skyview perspective. But in a way, Skyview, you're a 4A power. You're down here in this part of the state where there's only 3 other 4A teams. Traditionally, 2A teams are tough to schedule because they have 7-8 league games, and so that takes up a bulk of their schedule. So, but you're looking at the Columbia River schedule, they schedule Columbia White Salmon week 2. So for them, I think it's a concerted effort to say, let's really pare it back. Let's not, let's use the early season to really kind of establish who we are as a program and try to build going into that league season, which starts so early in the 2A St. Helens.
Yeah, and that was a surprise to me too. Is Columbia River coming out with back-to-back 1A teams to open its season? I mean, that is a completely different direction than what it traditionally has done with its non-league schedule in the past.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting to see, the paths that those two preeminent programs, and by preeminent I mean programs with, good fan bases, long histories of success. Coach DP Dwayne Patterson at Columbia River is trying to rebuild something and establish a baseline of success. While Skyview, you got to think every year their standard is, contending for a league title and making a deep run in state.
And by no means is the game between Columbian River and Skyview over, right? I mean, it's every 2 years you can revisit this, and again, maybe in 2 to 4 years, this is a rivalry that can reshape itself.
All right, we'll end it with a couple more hires that you may have noticed if you pay attention. New football coaches at Prairie and Fort Vancouver.
Absolutely. Will Ephraim, he spent the last 2 years at Prairie. He is now at Fort Vancouver. That hire was made earlier this week. And Junior Miller, who has been an assistant coach previously at Columbia River and at Prairie. He's a Prairie alum. He is the new head coach at Prairie.
Why do those two hires make sense?
Will Ephraim, first of all, he's been around the block. He has been in Clark County, previously at Seton Catholic, obviously Prairie the past 2 years, and Hudson's Bay previously before that. He's got the experience at Fort Vancouver, and that's something I know that James Inslee is excited about. And for Junior Miller, he's a Prairie guy, first-time head coach, and I think it's a perfect spot for him to be a first-time head coach.
All right. Well, the fact that we're talking football in February is just a reminder that the season is going to be here before we know it, and the fact that football, even though it's only played in the fall, it really is a year-round thing, year-round interest, year-round fandom, and so we're happy to talk about it. We've got some playoff basketball coming up. I'm going up to the MAC Classic State Wrestling Championship this weekend. Always one of my favorite events to cover. So we have a lot to talk about with winter sports, but Meg, you're back in town, and what better way to celebrate that than talking football here? So we will see you next week on Varsity 360. Thank you for watching.